Hi, I'm William, and this is the Wine Room at Putnam Market, Saratoga Springs, upstate New York, and we've started wine lessons again, and so we've got this class full of eager wine professionals working out how they can best describe the wine. And one of the wines that they were struggling with just last night was this. It's Schoffitz Rangen Clos Saint Theobald, Grand Cru Riesling from Alsace, the vintage 2016, and this is a fabulous wine. It's a fabulous wine because it's wonderfully rich. It has a tremendous amount of tension to it, which is to say, it's kind of like twanging almost. It's like a violin string, and you pluck it, and it reverberates and reverberates and reverberates. But those aren't the sorts of things that they're being asked to talk about. They're being asked to talk about apples and maybe caramels and salt. And that seems to me that whilst those things might be good for wine professionals, they don't really tell you, the everyday consumer, whether you want to drink it. And I was thinking to myself, you might like to see some of the ways people used to do these sorts of conversations. Now, here's an interesting chap, George Saintsbury, and this is his notes on a cellar book, probably dates from around the beginning of the 20th century. And here you can say he's talking about the fact that he got these magnums of Mouton Rothschild, 1975, and he says here, I bought them at an extremely moderate price, and I hardly need tell anyone who knows claret history what it turned out to be. I don't think I ever had a better. And it gave me an agreeable triumph. The late Monsieur Belgium, one of the best of men, of scholars, and of foreign speakers of English, was dining with me. During dinner, I had, perhaps rather rashly, said I thought we got some of the best French wine in England. And he replied, politely but doubtfully, yes, you get some of the best. And, with a little hesitation, some of the worst. So I laughed and waited. When he had the Mouton in his glass, I said, now that is from behind the fagot, is it not? And he bowed as only a Frenchman can bow and turned the phrase back into its native French with an emphasis oui before it. So what does this mean, behind the fagot, or de derrière les fagots, as I think it might be in French? Well, it's the suspicion that whenever you go to a wine cellar in France and they show you the wine that they have made, they're not really showing you the very best of the wine that they have, because the very best is the secret stash, and the secret stash is derrière les fagots, behind the wood pile. That's where the really good stuff is. It's the secret stash. What a great way to describe a great bottle of wine. Hi, I'm William. This is the Wine Room at Putnam Market in Saratoga Springs in upstate New York. And thinking about how wine is described, and moving on from the great George Saintsbury and his notes on a cellar book, about 100 years, a bit less, you come across these diaries of Harry Warr. Harry Warr was another wine writer, much praised in England and famous for having answered when asked had he ever confused Bordeaux with Burgundy. He replied, not since lunchtime. So again, what you have is wine being not so much described, but having the excitement of it conveyed to the reader rather than spelt out. And after the tasting here, he's describing a tasting with Marcel Guigal in the Northern Rhone. So Marcel Guigal took us to a restaurant after the tasting on the right bank of the Rhone to the north of Vienne, where the young chef specializes in fish, and certainly our turbot was admirable. And with this, we drank the 1982 Condrieu from Guigal, which had been good at the tasting, but was even better with food. And one can find with a good Condrieu, this had an exciting taste, with the faintest hint of sweetness, in spite of the fact that this is a dry wine. And with our cheese, Marcel produced his 78 Brunet Blonde, still firm, but possible to drink, and how good it will be when fully matured. I have some of this at home, and will keep it for a few more years. And incidentally, at home, I'm drinking an excellent 1980 Côte de Rhône from Guigal as the daily fare. And so it's this conversational style, but there's no doubt at all that the recommendation is exactly for this wine, and it's a recommendation which I completely share. For around $15, you won't find a better bottle of Southern Rhone red wine. Hi, I'm William. This is the Wine Room at Putnam Market in Saratoga Springs, upstate New York. Having had a look at how George Saintsbury in the beginning of the 20th century, late 19th century, and then subsequently Harry Warr in the 1980s were going about talking about wine and trying to convey their enthusiasm about the same time, we started to see coming to prominence worldwide, really, the wine advocate, which was the vehicle for Robert Parker. And this is one of the early editions. This is volume 22, and it dates from July 1982. And here you can see Parker describing a bottle of wine from the 1981 vintage, produced by Georges Duboeuf, and it's the Morgan, it's a village in Beaujolais, and it's the Jean des Combes. And he describes it this way: it's the essence of fine Beaujolais, round, deep, fruity, savoury, and so charming. And I would recommend cellaring this wine for 6 months or so, as they are a little more tannic than their fellow 1981 Beaujolais. I mean, it's nice, isn't it? It's a kind of chatty style, and you completely understand that the man likes the wine. There's no score attached to the wine here, just simply a recommendation. But if we swiftly move forward here, we're looking at 2009, and you can see that this thing has put on weight somewhat, and it's not just the pamphlet which is put on weight. Everything's put on weight. And here we've got the 2008 Morgan Jean des Combes, the same Georges Duboeuf wine. Now we are told that it has a score 90 out of 100. And if we wanted to know what he says about it, he says it represents a perennially popular benchmark, not to mention value, and this year, black raspberry and peach preserves rush from the glass and envelop the palate with silken textural allure and an almost liqueur-like presence. Yet for all the suggestion of sweetness, this is also more than bright enough to refresh and grips impressively, finishing with complexity of animal nuances and floral inhalation. Expect this to be worth several years of cellaring. So you get the drift. We've moved into a sort of descriptions which is taken straight out of the produce section of the grocery store. And that, of course, has all cantered on ahead as we have more and more people offering their opinions of wines, particularly on the internet where there's really no cost to it, and all of them giving us this litany of vegetables and fruits, none of which will tell you whether to buy the wine.